Yeah, let's rock.
Welcome everyone. My name is Richard Schneeman, author of How to Open Source. Today I have Ben, the CEO or CTO,
CEO.
CEO. All right, yeah, the big guns of Tuple.app. So Tuple is an application for pairing. It's my favorite application for pairing, coincidentally. You want to say hi, Ben?
Yeah, I'm stoked to be here. I Pairing was like a huge game changer in my career, and so I'm stoked to talk about this topic that made a big difference for me professionally.
Awesome. Well, I am very happy to have you. I recently launched a book, and in doing so, asked as some of the people who bought it what they're interested in. A lot of them indicated that they are really interested in pairing, so hence inviting Ben. And yeah, wanted to ask you a couple of questions. One of them that came up is just kind of like high level. Hey, like are there differences pairing on like open source software versus proprietary software?
Um, Probably not in the actual act of pairing. I would assume. I can't think of any differences that would be there. Um, I think it's probably you might see some differences in what it takes to get people to pair with you. I'm not quite sure the willingness of open source maintainers to pair with other contributors.
Hmm.
I You would sort of hope it was high, or sort of maybe once you had earned a little bit of trust or sort of shown a bit of promise, that could be a thing that would be an easier pitch to make. Like if I were an open source maintainer, um, and I sort of had all the responsibility of my project, I would want to train other people on that project so as to help share some of the burden, I think.
Right.
And I haven't found a better thing than pairing for like transmitting that sort of knowledge yet. So I would think, whereas if you're at a company and you're all, are in the same team and you're all working on the same app, like it's probably pretty easy to just, DM somebody and say, hey, can we pair on this thing?
Totally. Yeah, I think, and you kind of alluded to a little bit of as a maintainer needing to balance your. It's like, yes, you want to train people up, but you also need to balance that with, well, hey, am I ever going to see this person again? Yeah. So in order to pair, you need to be able to find people. It's a little bit different in working in the open, working in open source. Have you ever seen any sort of like pairing groups, or have you seen any sort of patterns with either people who say like, hey, I have a thing I want to share, or other people come to the table and say, oh, I have a problem, or I need help with this. Just or tips really in general for people looking for someone to pair with, but maybe they don't necessarily have kind of like a pre-built pool.
It's kind of a bigger question. I think the question of how do you find someone to pair with is a little bit like the question of how do you find colleagues or mentors. Pairing is just a way of working together, right? It's not a magical practice. It's effective and I'm a big fan of it, but it's not different than working with other people, really. It's just a type of working together. And so, yeah, I think it really transposes to the question of how do I find great people to work with? And I think I think maybe a short answer to that is be worth working with. Um, be like a friendly person, a productive person. Show uh, some indications that you are going to be good to pair with is probably a good way to start.
Hmm.
I think if you if you email someone and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Will you be my mentor?" No one wants to say yes to that. That's not a compelling pitch, right? But if you say, "Hey, I've been a fan of your work. I loved this project and this project. You inspired me to do this thing, and I ran into this problem. Could you offer me some, like, do you have any advice on how I might tackle this?" Um, Now you're starting a relationship with somebody. You've shown that you have done work. You've done some homework already, and you're showing that you are possibly worth mentoring. And I think that approach is probably likely to pay better dividends than sort of saying just like, how do I find someone to pair with? Like, who wants to pair with me? Well, in the open source context, try to get a couple PRs under your belt, maybe. Um, or ask if the maintainers have considered like organizing a pairing day where maybe they like connect a few people like that are interested in becoming contributors or new contributors, something like that.
Hmm. Have you seen anything like that in the wild? like I ask because it's like, hey, I'm trying to run this community, and it's like I've got people who want to pair, I have people who want to work on project. It's like it seemed,
It's it's a weird thing. I've seen a lot of failed efforts here. I think it's a pretty common programmer impulse to be like, I should build a site that matches pair people together that want to pair programming. Because you can sort of envision how the app will work, and so a lot of programmers write it. And I think it's not a matching problem really.
mm-hmm.
It just because these two people want to pair in the same time zone and in the same language doesn't mean they're really going to actually pair together. I think there's more complex social dynamics at play than an app is going to solve. I think the closest thing I've seen to a direct effort to cause more pairing that has worked well has been like inside a company. So one of the customers of Tuple is Shopify. They have thousands of developers using our product, and they ran a internal pairing contest. They ran a contest. It was like whoever pairs the most this week or with the most people or the most time becomes eligible for these prizes. And I think the prizes were honestly just like t-shirts and badges and things like that. Like I think they were fairly simple things. But I think you would be, I remain continually surprised by how much developers will do for a t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a possible approach there.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing that. There's actually like a lot of engagement within the group within Hacktoberfest. It's just like, something to focus on. I feel like is like is a big thing. It's like when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, it's like a contest. It's like, yeah, who can pair the best? It's like who can be the most friendly? It's like, oh, I'm gonna crush it at being friendly.
Totally.
That's interesting. Yeah, pairing contest. Yeah, and even one of the people in the group specifically called out and mentioned FocusMate. Have you ever heard of FocusMate?
Yeah, that's the thing where you go and you work with somebody kind of simultaneously but separately.
Right. Yeah. So like for just everybody else, like you log into the site and you just say, hey, I need to focus. I need basically somebody to kind of keep me accountable. It pairs you up with someone. I mean, not pairs, like it matches you with someone. There we go. And then you kind of basically just sit there for a block of time while you both do work. And like the idea is like if you start like playing on your phone or something, like the other person would see. So it's like it's kind of like working in a cafe. So yeah, good. You're familiar with it. Somebody specifically was asking like, hey, have you ever considered integrating with Tuple? And it's like back with the matching issue, not super keen on that, like you said, as being a technology issue.
Yeah, I think I don't believe that you're going to pair random strangers together and have it work that well. You might occasionally have success there. If you get people with similar values and goals, you have higher success rate, I'm sure. I think you probably want to pair strangers. I think you need to have a human in the loop and very motivated people. Otherwise, it's kind of like pairing up workout buddies, where if either person flakes, then the other person also can't work out. It's kind of like now we're like just like tied together in this particular foot race. We have considered building some things like within teams. Like I think would work is saying, Richard joined the team a week ago and hasn't paired with anyone. Maybe someone should pair with him. Or here's a leaderboard. Richard actually pairs with the most people in a given month. I wonder if anyone can catch him. Here's the second and third and fourth place kind of thing. And sort of take a thing that is already mostly working or is already an established social group and kind of give it nudges. I think that would possibly work. But this like, we should add matching into Tuple to have people find other people to pair with broadly, like throughout the internet, like among strangers. I'm pretty skeptical of. I might be wrong. Maybe it would be an amazing feature, but I have suspicions.
Okay. Yeah. I makes sense.
Your group might be might be an exception. Like, so we did do so when I was running Upcase for Thoughtbot, which is an educational like developer training service, I think we did do some matching of pairs and there was some success. I wouldn't say it was like resounding success, but there was pairing happening. Like people reported that it actually occurred. So I think it is possible within a group that has kind of self-selected and identified like, I want to learn this thing. I'm willing to invest this like effort to do this.
For that within matching people, of the times that you have mentioned pairing, it kind of sounds like you're mostly envisioning a different level, like kind of a like a senior, junior. I mean, like all
No,
the
actually,
baggage of
no.
labels and whatnot, or like same level, or like I don't know. Yeah, just are there any like other than values and like character traits and like just connection? Like, are there any other um like things to look for that might make a good pair, like a good pairing setup, or like a good pairing pair? That's
Yeah. Pair programming is a more social endeavor than most programming activities. Um, it's like, like live real time code review a little bit. And so just like in a code review, you have to be kind of a little careful about how you say things, and you have to like maybe use more emoji, like positive emoji, and more uh, err on the side of politeness and friendliness and happiness than you might otherwise. I
hmm
think pairing has a little bit of that as well. I think a good pair is someone that has empathy and friendliness and a decent amount of easygoingness. Um, and so I would sort of seek to pair with people that you enjoy spending time with. Like
hmm
if they're nice humans and pleasant, and enjoy collaborating on things, then you'll probably have a good time pairing with them. If they are the type to nerd snipe you, or well actually you all the time, or to be condescending if you don't know something, then you will not have a good time pairing with that person. And it's not pairing's fault; it just exposes a thing that was there.
right? Yeah, there's just already a relationship. It's not, they're not going to be like literally a different person when they show up to the
Yeah.
session. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, that makes sense to me. So you do on the site, you do have kind of a like why pairing, and
Mm.
there's sort of like a 5 second, 5 minute, maybe that's not the delineation. One of the people in my group was asking if you know of any research to in the world of pairing. So they were trying to bring pairing to their company, and they were basically just looking for more ammo, more firepower. Like, hey, we say pairing has done X, Y, and Z. Do you know of either a existing research, or I don't know, maybe ongoing research?
Yeah, if you Google scientific research into pair programming, our article is the top result. I wrote. There's not much, is the short answer. So I wrote up what I found, and it's about six or so plausible studies that you could maybe say make a decent case for pairing.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. So hopefully that will help. It's our this is a site that we made, learntopair.com, and that's one of the articles. There's lots of stuff there. Most of what I know about pairing, I tried to put on that site.
LearnToPair.com.
Um,
Got it.
you you could try to justify this like scientific. It feels like uh, coming up with scientific research into programming productivity measures seems very hard to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming up with a measure of how productive programmers are is tantalizing, and so far I think has been fairly intractable. I'm not sure you could get something that would convince a lot of expert practitioners that you have a good metric that actually demonstrates whether a programmer is productive. It might be almost impossible. And so to say, here is some scientific research into the effectiveness of pair programming sort of requires, some measurement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Otherwise, you're just doing like surveys. Like, did you feel more productive? Did you enjoy this experience more? And the surveys, there are, people have done this research with surveys, and the surveys do show very strong, like positive results. People enjoyed pairing. They felt more productive. They felt more connected. I wouldn't probably take this track if I were trying to introduce pairing or try to justify pairing as an activity.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would try to kind of no big deal my way into it. Meaning, like, I think sometimes people think like, um, I need to convince my team. I should convince my team, my company, my management that we should do pair programming. And
Mm-hmm.
so let me make the case. And it would be great if there were a study that showed that this is like clearly a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you probably should do instead is go to a coworker that you have a great relationship with and who is warm and friendly and empathetic and say, hey, will you give me a second set of eyes on this real quick? And fire up something like Tuple, or, some other screen sharing tool or whatever, or have them pull up a chair next to you if you are working in person, plug in an extra keyboard, and just like write some code together. And don't even call it pairing. Don't make a big deal of it. Just be like, call it a second set of eyes. Because that's fundamentally what like pairing is at the end of the day. It's two people looking at the same code at the same time. And all the rules or strategies or tactics about who types when and who has a mouse and who has a keyboard and where's the monitor and all this really is sort of implementation details. But the fundamental activity is two programmers looking at the same code. And so you can do that in person, you can do that remote. And I would just casually start this practice and see how it goes. And if you like it and it works well, try to do it some more and maybe do it with some other people. And maybe when someone at a stand up says, I'm still stuck on that, whatever, and say, oh, do you want me to like come take a look at that with you at some point? And then lo and behold, you're pairing with them. Or like, hey, maybe you and Mary should pair on that thing or should, work on that thing together. I would go at it grassroots
Uh-huh.
and subtly and not make a big deal about it. And pairing is not for every team, so it might not work.
Hmm.
But I think that's probably gives you a pretty good chance of success. Top down, like we will all pair,
Hmm.
can work occasionally. There are some organizations that have that and have done that and have become pairing organizations, so it can work.
Hmm.
Um, I would that's not how I would introduce pairing at an existing organization that is not already pairing or doesn't have extreme buy-in from the top who are willing to say, yes, we're going to make this like the priority of the quarter is everyone's going to pair and we'll see how it goes.
Hmm. So it's like I think the reason behind maybe why they were asking it's like, oh hey, how can I get this top down like buy-in? It's like maybe they were looking for like a credit card, like they're looking for like the
Mm-hmm.
sign in. They're looking for like, oh hey, I it's like specifically it's like, oh I heard there's this great app that I would like to get access to. Yeah, I don't know. It's like
What other options?
yeah. Well, it's like you have a free trial period, right?
Yes. So we do have a free trial. It doesn't require a credit card. So we see lots of our customers sign up as like sort of entry level developers or like, developers without a credit card. And then they try it and they like it and they ask someone higher up the chain for permission to buy it and then become paid customers. But also, and relevant to this group, I suspect, is that we give away the app for open source teams. So you can get a permanently free team if you are open source maintainers or working on open source. And it's just Tuple.app/OSS and fill out that form with what you're working on. And we grant this to probably almost everyone that fills it out. So we leverage, like, we use a lot of open source software in our tool and our company is built on top of it. So we were like, we were very happy to give back to the OSS community in this way.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm a recipient of a happy recipient of this program, um, and I think only one both people don't need to have paid for it. Is that it's like
Correct.
yeah, okay, so it's like
Yeah,
if you want to pair with somebody who's never done it, it's like they don't have to make this big investment. Like if one person has a license, like you can invite somebody else to kind of pair with you, right?
exactly. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that helps ease that transition and kind of gets to the heart of the it's like yeah, research maybe not, but like it's like really it's like how can we hit the ground running? How can we do more pairing? And I think that's I think you're makes total sense to me. Have you ever heard of like I guess pairing on like non-technical tasks or just kind of almost
Oh yeah.
like writing an RFC or like like research or I guess yeah if you can speak to that.
I pair on non-technical tasks all the time, every week. And this actually happens a lot at our company. A lot of non-programming things happen on tuple sessions as a part of a pair. A lot of the benefit of pairing, there's a lot of benefits of pairing that you get even if there's no code on the screen. So it's often less boring to
Mm-hmm.
work on something, or if something is boring, it's less boring. It's less likely to be boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's more engaging if someone is there with you. It's harder to slack off if you're sharing your screen. So you tend to stay more focused and get the thing done faster with fewer like Twitter accidental long Twitter breaks or email breaks or Slack breaks or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It spreads knowledge around the team. If I watch someone do a process or writing a doc or something, I'm learning that thing at the same time. So we like are having all this like rich communication happening. You can see how someone else works, how someone else thinks, which is really useful for just becoming more awesome yourself. You might see they have a wonderful Mac OS tool that you want to steal, or oh hey, I didn't know you could do that in our app with this shortcut, or how did you make that thing happen? true while programming, but also true while just using your computer. So there's all these benefits that are available to you, and I think it shines particularly well on coding because programming is so hard. And it's just so easy to write bugs that having a second set of eyes and it's so hard to make a great design, like a good coding design,
Mm-hmm.
that it feels extra worth having another person there because bugs in production can be very costly. They're not fun to fix. They slow you down a lot. Bad design decisions, probably that even worse. Like true for all those things, but even stronger probably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it shines a lot there. But we have found quite a lot of value in just pairing a lot, like running payroll, or like figuring out what's the policy on this thing, or what are our goals for next quarter, all those sorts of things.
Okay, cool. How do you initiate those conversations, or do you just say, hey, I'm working on this. Somebody want to do it with me?
Yeah, same sort of casual way. I have like standing pairing meetings, kind of like you, on my calendar, with people that I work with a lot. That's probably true for a number of our employees as well. But yeah, I think there's a fair amount of ad hoc pairing happening where someone just calls somebody else. Like I'm like, oh, this is tricky. Let me just call this person, and just like they get a notification that I'm calling them, and there's my screen, and we start talking, and it happens just kind of fairly fluidly. And we've built like our culture is sort of steeped in this, as you'd imagine. Making a pairing app for a living.
Right.
There's a lot of pairing happening. Everyone's expecting it. No one is shocked when you want to do it with them. So that does a lot of work there.
Cool. Very cool. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you coming on board and answering some of the open source community's questions. And so, yeah, thank you, Ben from Tuple.app.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.